Hello, my frugal food lovers. I am very excited to bring you today's video. This is going to be 20 or more of my family's favorite frugal meals for your family. That's a lot of F words in one sentence. I have assembled all of the recipes for today's video into a downloadable PDF for you to take and print and have. It's like a little mini cookbook. All that information will be down below if you are interested in my little mini frugal cookbook. Without further ado, let's get cooking. Black bean Mexican rice bowls. Thanks to the Instant Pot, this meal comes together so quickly, so easily. I've measured out 2 pounds of black beans that I'll be cooking in my 8-quart pressure cooker. I would not recommend doing 2 full pounds of beans in a 6-quart. It can be done, but it's a little tight. So maybe cut back to 1.5 pounds or 1 pound. I will be adding some powdered garlic and minced onions. Totally not necessary, but I just like to for flavor. I will not be adding salt until after they're done cooking. But usually if you stick your finger in and you're about up to the 2nd knuckle, that's enough water. Don't worry, I washed my hands. Set that baby to seal. Oh my gosh, Christine, how about we plug it in? Oh my word. Push it in for go. Now that the black beans are done, I'm gonna come over to the rice. I have 2 cups of brown rice, 1 can of Rotel. Added chicken broth to the right measurement with the rice and cooked it. This time I'm using my 6-quart Casserole, which has a brown rice button. There it goes. Here's the final product. I have my Spanish or Mexican rice on the bottom, the black beans. I put sour cream, salsa, and guac with some cheddar cheese on top. You can add some tortilla chips if you like. One of the cheapest meals you can make. This is going to be taco soup. So I have some black beans, some kidney beans, a couple onions, some hamburger. You could do turkey burger if you want, and assorted canned tomatoes. You could use any variety you like. This is just what I had. I always have canned tomatoes on hand, so I have a petite diced with Chipotle, chilies, and a Rotel knockoff. This is creamed corn. I've got my meat browning with the onions and a little bit of garlic. When the meat's totally done browning, I will add all of the tomatoes and my taco seasoning. Here I've added all of the cans of beans and the canned tomatoes. I probably have the equivalent of 3 cans, 2 to 3 cans each of kidney beans and black beans. Of course, you could use whatever assortment you like here. And then I just like to add the tomatoes until it looks soupy. And then I like to add just a little bit of water. Now to this, I'm going to be adding 2 full packets of taco seasoning. And we noticed when it was done, I actually could have added maybe a touch more because there's a lot of food in this pot. I let it simmer for a couple hours, but I added the can of corn and this is what it looks like. I did end up adding a little bit more water, and now you can serve it basically with whatever you like to serve tacos with. Cheese, sour cream, chips, or you can just eat it like this. We're doing homemade chicken and dumplings. I have about 8 cups of chicken broth right here and some chicken that I had just thrown in my Instant Pot real quick. I'm gonna shred it nice and little and dump it in the water. You're basically just gonna take your chicken broth and chicken up to a full rolling boil. So while this is coming up to temperature, I'll put the dumplings together, and then once the dumplings are made, you'll drop them in once it's at the rolling boil. And they only cook for a couple minutes. Oh, and feel free to add lots of pepper.
The people, they want the pepper, all right?
Onto the dumplings. All I have in here are equal parts flour and water, some black pepper,
Do not be afraid of the pepper,
and some salt. I did a 1/2 cup of each this time because last time I did 1 cup and it was like too many. So you start there, and then see how liquidy this is? I want it to form more of a dough. So you just add flour and keep stirring until it turns into a dough that you can roll out. Okay, I ended up with about 1 cup of flour and a 1/2 cup of water to get to this point. Now I'm gonna try and roll it out and make some strips. So keep in mind that you are going to get messy. I actually should have been wearing an apron during this. There's a lot of flour on your counter, on your hands, on your rolling pin. You want to roll these out as thin as you possibly can get them. And then I just use a little butter knife to cut some strips. They do not have to be perfect. Clearly mine aren't perfect because they're just going to cook in the pot and get cooked and mushed up anyway. Drop them in when it's a full rolling boil, one at a time. Cook them until your soup is ready. Okay, there's the chicken and dumplings right there. I might get out some saltine crackers for that. I have some homemade bread and butter. For dessert, some cherry crisp. One of my family's favorite frugal meals is pizza. For my recipe, I've got 3 cups of just regular flour, 1 tablespoon of salt. I know that seems like a lot, but you know, pizza's supposed to be salty, right? 1 teaspoon of black pepper.
A fresh pepper.
And 1.5 teaspoons of oregano or Italian seasoning. I have this Italian seasoning that I'm going to be using today. My favorite part about this whole recipe is that there's no yeast in it, so there's no kneading and waiting for it to rise. Last 2 ingredients for the crust, I have 6 eggs, I know, and 2 cups of milk. I've used everything from skim to half and half. I'm using half and half today because that's what I have in the fridge. Just trying to use up what I have. And I'm using a whisk, but a whisk or a spoon just to bring it all together. It'll be like it should be pourable. It shouldn't be a dough so much as a batter. Make sure you spray though. So you see how I'm just pouring that in like that? It's almost like a pancake batter, sort of, except, oh my gosh, could you make pizza pancakes out of this? My brain is spinning. Okay, and just like that, our crust is finished. Here's the part that can be tricky. So whatever toppings you prefer to use, I usually use whatever I have on hand that day. Today, it's going to be spicy sausage. Only want to put the toppings on that don't include the sauce and cheese. Those are gonna go later. If I was gonna do like onions and bell peppers or pepperoni, that would go on right now. So I'm gonna do my sausage right now.
I wish we could have it right now.
I know, right? We gotta cook it first though. That's it. And so I'm gonna stick this in a 425-degree oven for about 25 minutes, and then we'll add the rest of the ingredients. Okay, it is out of the oven. As Ryan said, it's puffy. The edges kind of rose up a little bit. So I'm gonna add probably half of this jar, because I only have half left. The pizza sauce is going on, I think that's about all I need.
That's a lot of pizza sauce.
We're gonna spread it out and then put the cheese on top. It's gonna go back in the oven for 10 more minutes. And then the trick is once you pull it out that second time, it needs to sit for 10 minutes to like solidify. Back in the oven. Okay, we are done. There we go. So I'm gonna cut some slices out and serve up the kids. Dave and Andrew are off mountain biking, so I've only got the 4 of us for tonight. This Mexican black bean sausage chili does have a few more ingredients, but they are simple, basic, easy to find, and quick and easy to put together, which is my favorite part. I have this at $8.41 for the whole meal, which comes out to $1.05 a serving. But if you choose to use 1 pound of dried black beans and cook them yourself, it will drop your price to $6.81, which is 85 cents a serving. Unbelievable. And I will add a little bit of oil on the bottom of this. We are just browning the sausage, the onions together, and then basically dump everything else in. It's super, super easy. And you just simmer it together until all the flavors come together. So obviously, the longer it simmers, the better it's going to be. Now that the sausage is cooked, in come my onions, 1 to 2 cups, depending on your onion preference. I'm of the opinion that if a little onion is good, more onion is better. 2 cans of diced tomatoes, in they go. 4 cans of black beans, or you can use 1 pound of dried beans that you cook yourself. I didn't even drain these. Look how easy this is. 3 cups of chicken broth. I'm just using plain water and chicken bouillon powder. 1 tablespoon of cumin. This measuring spoon is a half a tablespoon, so I've got it heaping here. 2 teaspoons of oregano. I'm gonna go a little shy on this one just because Dave doesn't prefer a ton of that. Half of a can of Chipotle chilies in adobo. About a tablespoon, I don't know, a teaspoon to a tablespoon, your call. I don't know that I'm ever gonna buy one this big again. So this is gonna simmer for 45 minutes and we'll come back, give it a taste for seasonings. 45 minutes later, here's what we have. You can top it with whatever you want. Cheese, chips, sour cream. So let's scoop some up right now. For a mere $6.84, you can have a delicious made-at-home takeout copycat spicy sriracha noodles coming at you. Only comes to $1.16 per serving. I'm gonna be mixing up the sauce right here. I have a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, about 5 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flake, or, you know, if you're a little shy on the spice, go a touch easy on that. Now let's dump in your sriracha. This is the one I happen to have right now, so I'll be using this one. This is all about your spice tolerance level. So I'm gonna do 4 tablespoons and eyeball it a little. It's probably a little shy of 4 tablespoons, but that's okay. And give it a whisk and set that to the side. Once your water's boiling, go ahead and add your lo mein noodles. I have 14 ounces here. While this cooks, move over to your skillet or saucepan. So this has been preheating and we're going to put in some butter and eggs. I have an entire stick of butter here because this is going to help create some of our sauce. So go ahead and put that in and let it start melting. 8 eggs, add some salt, give it a quick whisk. We will dump this into the butter. Eggs going in. Don't scramble all the way, just kind of lightly. Our eggs are mostly scrambled, so in comes the noodles. These are also hot, which will help cook the eggs. Here comes our sauce that we made before. Just kind of mix all of this together. My heat is off, by the way. And one last ingredient, some sliced green onions going in right now. Recipe rating on the spicy noodles. Oh my gosh, 10 out of 10, you have to go make it. If you're nervous about the spice level, you can totally cut down on the sriracha amount and leave out the crushed red peppers completely. It was perfect for me. My lips are a touch tingly, my mouth feels warm, but it was not like, ah! All of my kids ate it, no sweat. You could add chicken if you want to bump the protein factor, add some veggies on the side if you have some of those around. All of these ingredients here cost $4.29. So all you need are these ingredients, a knife, some water, and a crock pot. Let's put together this delicious crock pot potato cheese soup. I have 6 cups of diced potatoes and 1/2 to 1 onion diced, depending on how much you like onion. 2 teaspoons of chicken bouillon. I just used the cheap powder. 2.5 cups of water. As much pepper as you enjoy. I just have this little shaky pepper. I might have to take that lid off and be a little more generous. You can put this on high for 4 to 5 hours or low for 9 to 11 hours, and we'll add the milk and cheese much later when it's done being cooked. My friends, it is that easy. I just wanna make sure all my bouillon's down in there, and I realize it like barely covers these potatoes. I personally am gonna go high for 4 hours. I'll see you then. Quiet on the set. Okay, it has been about 4 hours. My potatoes are cooked. Oh, this is very hot. Oh, very hot. I like to use the Kraft singles cheese instead of actual cheese because this is the way my mom always did it. When you're recreating your mom's recipes, you do it the way she did it. Plus, it was probably, I think my parents did it because it was cheap, honestly. So this recipe is very near and dear to my heart. I grew up with this. My mom has made this potato cheese soup my entire life. When I was sick, my mouth hurt when I had braces, she would like double it. Like I'd eat the leftovers forever. To this day, my mom is in her 60s. To this day, my mom says this is still her favorite potato soup. So I'm doing 10 slices of the sliced cheese. If you want to use real cheese, it's 1.5 cups of shredded. And I have an entire can of evaporated milk. It does not matter what brand you use here. So the way my mom always did it is she would like lay out the string cheese, the sliced cheese in like a layer like that, and then kind of stir it in, like push it under and then do it again. I don't know why I'm doing this the exact way she used to do it. I don't know. You do what your mom says, right? That's the rule of life. So I'm gonna kind of mush them a little bit. There's clearly not enough pepper in this, so I'm also going to add some more pepper. I'm just gonna do one quick extra stir, and you can tell that there is now enough liquid. So the lid goes back on for about 30 minutes, and then this is ready to go. And this is one of those dishes that tastes even better the next day. So if you wanna double it and just bulk it up and kind of meal prep some soups for the week, that's a great idea. And also, this is a great dish for when you have a kid that's had their wisdom teeth out. So just wanna throw that in there also. See you in 30. This is the consistency you're looking for, and I was so excited. I already got myself a bowl in this soup mug. It smells amazing. This is excellent to eat with rolls. Did I mention rolls, crackers, homemade crusty bread, of which I also have a recipe for. You need to try this. You will not regret it. This is going to be a $1.46 per serving dish, and it is a play on my grandfather's chicken and rice roget dish, which is a fabulous cream of mushroom soup, chicken and rice casserole. I'm taking his basic recipe and tweaking it into a lime Chipotle chicken and rice casserole instead. It's not really a casserole, it's chicken and rice baked in a dish. So here we have just a 10 by 15 baking dish. I like a bigger one than a 9 by 13. Just for my own personal preference, I have 1 cup of raw plain rice. This is not cooked at all. And about half of a raw chopped onion. So easy to put together. On top of this, I'm gonna put chicken on the bone of your choice. Now, I'm a big fan of the dark meat, so I have chicken thighs here, and I'm using an entire package. So this is gonna be 8 chicken thighs. So in theory, you could feed 8 people with this, but I'm assuming I'm gonna only feed 6, like just my family with this. I would recommend chicken on the bone for this dish and not boneless chicken, just because of the cooking time in the oven is not, like, just chicken breast is gonna get dried out. Bone-in chicken thighs, drumsticks are gonna be fabulous. Chicken leg quarters are great. Here is what I have so far. Like, I've spent no time on this so far. And my package of chicken did have the skin on, but I went ahead and took off most of it. I did leave some just for the fat content. Okay, now on top of this, we're gonna put our liquid. So let's set this to the side and mix that up. Wash your hands. For our liquid, I have 2 cups of water because I'm using powdered bouillon. You could also use 2 cups of chicken broth, whichever you have or is more convenient for you. Now, I was looking for a can of Rotel, but I didn't have that in my pantry. So instead, I'm gonna use this 14.5 ounces of diced tomatoes and a can of diced green chilies to try and replicate Rotel. Any brand is completely fine. You know, this feels like a lot. Maybe I'll only use half of this. I'll use half of that, because that's a ton of diced green chilies. I have 2 diced Chipotles in adobo right here. I only use 2 because I find them to be pretty spicy. And the juice of 2 limes. Bottled lime juice, also okay. Now before we whisk, let's add a few spices. I'm gonna do this garlic powder right here because I am trying to use this up. I'll do about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of each of these. Onion powder, ditto. I don't know why I buy this. I never use this. Ground cumin, which I do use often. I love this stuff. About a teaspoon there. There we go. A little bit of salt. And then whisk. Whisk it real good. Okay, this is our liquid that's gonna go into our dish. Smells really good. Pour in your liquid all over your chicken and rice and onions, trying not to spill on the counter. Hey, I did pretty good. Well, I did well. Good and well are different. Now this is optional. If you want to give it a little bump of flavor, I happen to have this cilantro lime seasoning in my spice cabinet that I have not used. Like, I bought it because I thought I would use it and I haven't been. So if you have something that's similar, go ahead and just give your chicken a little sprinkle on top, just like this. Just seasoning the chicken a touch. This goes into a 375-degree oven, uncovered for 1 hour. Ooh, that's hot. Here is the completed dish. I checked with a fork and my rice is 100% cooked. 1 hour at 375, uncooked, makes the perfect amount of rice. And because we add so much liquid and we do cook it for a long time, it floofs up really nicely. Feeding a family of 6 for $8 total. Can never go wrong with a cheap and easy chicken and rice bake. This is a dish that I don't make a ton, and in retrospect I should make a lot more often, but it's basically a play on like a chicken tortilla soup with some beans in it and some lime juice. It sounds very weird, but it is delicious. And today we're gonna cook it in my off-brand 8-quart Instant Pot, but I normally do it on the stove. You can do it on the stove in a soup pot, no sweat, or in a crock pot. You just cook it for longer. It's really easy. I'm starting with a couple of chicken breasts, and we're gonna top those with some taco seasoning. Other cast of characters that we're gonna need today are beans. I have a couple of onions that have been in my fridge for I don't know how long, so we're gonna get these out of there. A little bit of garlic, couple of limes, some chicken broth, and we're gonna use, focus on the cubes. We're gonna use the cubes because we're classy like that. Oh, and we're gonna throw them all over the floor because why not? Okay, a couple of spices. Taco seasoning just for the chicken. It's just a quick like flavoring. Some ground cumin, some chili powder, and if there's anything else, I will tell you as we go. I have 8 really small chicken breasts here, and I'm just gonna use some taco seasoning that I have in my cabinet. If you don't wanna use taco seasoning, salt and pepper would be just fine. I have a bunch of bacon fat. I do store it in my fridge, lasts forever, just like my grandma taught me. And I put season side down, and once I'm there, I will season the other side. I did 2 batches to get all the chicken breasts in, but it didn't take that long. One of my favorite ways to cut up garlic is actually to use the microplane because it makes these teeny tiny pieces of garlic, smallest I've ever seen. And so you'll get the flavor, but not the huge chunks of garlic, which is really good for my mom who doesn't like a ton of garlic. So I took the chicken out, added in all of my onions and garlic. You can use as much or as little as you like here. I happen to like onions and garlic a lot, so I like using a lot. Kind of scrape the bottom of the pan with those and then add in your chicken broth. I ended up using 6 cups of this, and we're gonna do a tiny sprinkle of cayenne pepper, as many beans as you like. This was probably the equivalent of 2.5 cans of beans, and I wish I had done more. I wish there were more of that in there, so that's totally up to you. Half a teaspoon of chili powder, half a teaspoon of ground cumin, and the squeeze of a couple of limes. I ended up using 2 full limes in here, and that little lime juicer thingy is one of my favorite things ever. And I'm gonna throw all my chicken just whole right back in the pot because I wanted it to finish cooking in here, and I was planning on serving it a whole chicken breast per person. Of course, remember, these are not very big, and then they ended up shredding beautifully on their own just with a spoon when we were done. Remember, the great thing about recipes is that you can change them to whatever you like. So if you want to use a different meat or not as many onions or whatever, that's totally up to you. Everything is in our pot, and it's time to put the lid on and turn it to soup. Oh, first time. Usually it's hard to do that. Make sure it is on seal over here. Soup on this one is 30 minutes at high pressure. Let's see how this is going. Any day now would be great. There it is. Do you guys know that these holes right here are to put your lid? For me, this is a little on the soupy side, but that's because I prefer a heartier soup. More of a stew than a soup, but it is fine the way that it is. Taste for salt and pepper, always. So let's give it a quick taste. I think it's so good. It is perfect. So let's dish this up. We're gonna get these bowls today. And I can do like 1 whole chicken breast. These aren't huge, they're about 4 or 5 ounces each. And then a good bit of soup. And then each person can kind of just like shred their own and add their cheese and toppings at will. Tonight's pantry dinner includes these ingredients. Yep, it's really not very many. I typically always keep some kind of sausage in my freezer. I like to buy it when it's on sale or on clearance and freeze it for when I'm ready. So today we're using a hot Italian sausage, 1 pound of any pasta of your choice, some oregano, salt, pepper, and Parmesan cheese. Once your water's boiling, add some salt, please. Trust me, it makes a big difference in your pasta. Yoink! I love that noise. It's like they're cheering. Yay! We get to be cooked. Yay! Ooh. Once the sausage is cooked, it's time to add 1 cup of chicken broth. I just used the powdered bouillon and 1 tisp of oregano. And let's simmer that for a few minutes until it all comes together, and we'll be adding our pasta in just a minute. 1 pound of our broccoli, which I cooked in my air fryer. Here comes the pasta. Now I haven't added any salt and pepper yet because the sausage and the cheese that I'm adding is quite salty. And since the sausage is spicy sausage, it is already peppery. Mix this together. We're gonna add our Parmesan cheese, which is only about 1/4 cup or so. I'm gonna eyeball it. Stir to combine, and dinner's ready. Our dinner tonight is going to be an easy minestrone soup. I always keep onions, carrots, and garlic in my house, along with some celery, because you can use it in so many dishes and it stays good for a very, very long time in the refrigerator. Today, I have some actually sad looking zucchini. It's actually a little moldy, but we'll cut those spots off, it's fine. Canned tomatoes is always a staple. I have some cannellini beans here. These were cooked from dried, but you could also do canned. Some boxed pasta, chicken bouillon is one of my favorites, and Italian seasoning. Another nice addition would be maybe some jarred pesto would be delicious to bump the flavor a little bit, but basically all we're gonna do is saute our hard vegetables until they're soft, add everything else, and simmer until it's done. Today, I am going to take a little bit of inspiration from a vegetarian restaurant I went to that had a garlic, potato, and black bean taco. That is what I'm going to kind of try and recreate here. All I'm doing with these potatoes is chopping them into fairly small bites. Remember, these are going inside of a taco, so I did want them smaller than maybe I would do if I was just gonna be eating them with a fork. And I did find some fresh garlic in my refrigerator, and so I went ahead and used my microplane, and just the fresh garlic gave it such a nice punch, and I cooked it for about 25 minutes in my air fryer. The purple cabbage, I just did lime juice and a little bit of salt and let it sit for about 15 minutes, no big deal. And in my skillet, I put all my black beans. It was actually quite a bit. And the taco seasoning, and I think about 2 cups of water, just because I wanted to give it enough water to really get the flavors to soak into the beans a little bit, and let it cook until it was done. My potatoes ended up so delicious. I put the beans on top, the cabbage on top of that, a little dollop of sour cream. This dish was a 100% winner. My family loved it so much they want me to make it basically once a week now. This one went over so well, like so much better than I even thought it would. And I didn't even have the lettuce and tomato and avocado that I wanted to have to put on top. So you need to go make this. My family loves it when we do quesadillas. In my freezer, I have some chorizo. Cook that up in a skillet, put it on the tortillas. I found this dusty can of refried beans. So we'll do refried beans, chorizo, and tortillas for some homemade quesadillas.
Got any cheese?
Why, yes, Urkel, I am glad you asked. I do have cheese indeed. We have some leftover pepper jack. I'm gonna shred that right up and put it with all of this. Serve it with some salsa, serve it with some sour cream. Boom, dinner. The kids are gonna love it. It's fast and easy and gets rid of stuff in my house. Dinner what? Complete. I love chorizo. I love it, I love it, I love it. You can basically put it in anything and it will taste good. So just go buy some and start putting it in stuff. Your meals will taste delicious. This is some homemade chicken broth. In my Instant Pot, I was gonna make just like this Mexican rice. It's really easy, and I'm just kind of mixing it all together. Do you like this little smiley face spoon? I love these guys. If I can find some on Amazon, I'll link them down below for you. So it's just a can of Rotel, some rice, some chicken broth, some chicken bouillon if you have it, and throw it in your Instant Pot and hit the rice button. I believe it's 12 minutes on an Instant Pot. Oh, this is a Casserole actually, and it's only 6 on that one. I got my blocks of cheese. I had a little bit of cheddar and a little bit of pepper jack. Shredded both of them and kind of mixed them together. My kids don't really have a problem with normal pepper jack. They've been eating spicy food basically their whole life, so they're kind of used to it. These tortillas were enormous. Each kid actually almost didn't even eat an entire quesadilla because they were so massive. When I make quesadillas, I like to put oil on my griddle and then just kind of smear it around like you can see me doing here. It gives it a really pretty brown crust that's crunchy, and I'm a huge fan of crunchy food. If you put crunchy food in front of me, I'm probably gonna eat it. It was so good. We haven't had quesadillas in forever, so they were pretty stoked about this. What should we eat today? I'm looking at these pork chops and they're kind of screaming at me. Eat me!
Eat me!
These are a little 4-ounce sections, so we're gonna let these thaw today. I think we're gonna do my peach jam and Worcestershire sauce on these. It's gonna be good. This recipe would easily be adaptable for a lot of different cuts of meat. It would work well on chicken. I don't know that it would work well on steak, but potentially it would. So basically what you're seeing me do here is season all of the pork chops with salt, pepper, a little bit of ground ginger, and a pinch of cinnamon. After you're done that, you're going to sear them in a pan. You're not going to cook them all the way through. Just give it a hard sear with some oil so it's a little bit brown on top. I had to do mine in 2 batches because could really only fit 4 or 5. Once you're done with that, put them on a plate. I know they're not cooked all the way through. It's going to be okay. I've got about 1 cup of peach preserves or jam or something. Apricot will also work for this. And you're going to melt it down in your pan with some Worcestershire sauce. I believe that's about 1.5 tablespoons, maybe a little more, and some sriracha. And the sriracha, you can put like as much or as little as you want. Start heating up those peach preserves and get them kind of melty. You are welcome to add a little bit of chicken broth or a little bit of water to get it going if you need to, if it's really, really thick, and it'll turn into this beautiful sauce. Once it's at this consistency, you're going to add your pork chops back into the sauce and let them finish cooking all of the way through. Now, pork chops should be the very, very hint of pink in the center. They're easy to overcook, so please don't cook them for an hour. This is only like a 5-minute process. They should be tender. If you overcook pork, it's no good, but otherwise it's delicious. And here's our completed dish. My kids call it the nothing soup. It is excellent. Let's go back in time for a minute. Past Christine, where are you? Thank you so much, future Christine. Yes, we are going to prep a few things the night before. Now, you don't technically have to soak and cook ahead navy beans, but these are a little bit old. We are gonna soak these overnight and just do a real quick cook in the pressure cooker, maybe 10 minutes to get them going. I want them to be kind of the consistency of canned beans, but these do cook quite a bit faster than kidney beans, pinto beans, black beans, that sort of thing. So we're gonna go ahead and soak maybe half of this in some cold water, or we could soak the whole thing and also make white chicken chili. Let me ponder that. Back to future Christine. Okay, thanks past Christine for the prep work. One of the most important parts of this dish is fresh sage. Now, I always pick up the woohoo stickers, you guys know that. So I have put these in my freezer. So I'm just sauteing an onion or two, depending on how much onion you like, and some olive oil. If you have butter, you should add this, but I realize that I don't have any butter, so I should add that to my shopping list until it's soft. And then I'm gonna add chicken broth, the beans and the sage, and some garlic cloves. I'm gonna let that simmer till everything is cooked and soft. I put about 9 cups of chicken broth / bouillon. Say this is probably 9 to 10 cups of cooked white beans. You could do cannellini beans, you could do navy beans, it doesn't really matter. Here we go. All right, here it is with the beans. You know, I think I'm gonna add the rest of my beans. I have a few more. I think I'm just gonna dump them in and add maybe 2 more cups of the chicken broth. So here's what I have left. This is probably another 4 cups. Nobody lives forever. Nobody lives forever. That looks pretty good. And we're just gonna let this simmer until everything is cooked together and soft. Don't forget the sage leaves. I almost forgot. The sage leaves are gonna cook in there as well. And remember, all of this is gonna be pureed together. So don't do the stems, just the leaf. I've essentially tripled this at this point. Here's the immersion blender I have, and we're gonna mix up our soup. The last step is some heavy whipping cream. Now, before you freak out, remember that I have like 9 quarts of soup in here. Not even 1 cup of cream. You can taste for salt at this point, which I think it's pretty good. And then I also am gonna add a little bit of fresh cracked pepper. Here's the whole completed dinner. That Tupperware is a 1 gallon size, so it's 1 gallon almost of the soup, homemade bread, the salad, there's homemade croutons right there, and the chocolate chip cookies. I have this ham bone left over from Christmas I stuck in the freezer. There's a good bit of meat on there still. And 1 pound, maybe a little bit more, of kidney beans. And I'm gonna make my mom make it because her red beans and rice are better than mine. I don't know why, we use the same recipe, hers are better. I'm gonna soak these overnight, show you how my mom makes this tomorrow. I have my 1 pound of kidney beans that have soaked all night, some celery, an onion, the ham bone, and one of the most important ingredients, Uncle Tony's. We're just gonna chop that and dump all of this in here with some fresh water. This is one of the dishes that I grew up eating all of the time. My mom is from Louisiana, for those that don't know. It's one of my favorites. The kids love it. We have 1 massive onion in the crock pot, and we're chopping up basically, are you doing the whole head, Mom? I mean, there's really no recipe here, guys. Right. We'll probably do all of this. I mean, why not? And then I'm gonna drain and rinse these real quick before I dump those in. 3 bay leaves in here. We're gonna add these in and then cover with water and put in our Tony's and some chicken bouillon. The Tony's, I'd say a teaspoon to start. A teaspoon. You can always add more. You can't take away. So I would start on the light side. And that was probably a tablespoon of bouillon. Ooh, that's pretty full. Okay, everything's in. Believe it or not, there is water in there. It's just, you can't see it. If you don't have a ham bone, you could also make this with a ham steak. Just buy a ham steak and chop it up. You can do it with Louisiana smoked sausage. I've done it with ham hocks before. That's really good. Add water as we go, taste as we go, maybe add a little bit more of this. Has not been going as long as my mom would like. She says 12 hours on high.
Or less.
Or maybe a little bit less. We're about there. You definitely want what my grandma would call the bean liquor. It's like when the beans start like making this thick consistency. Just trust me, it's like really, really nice. So I might take this bone out of here and pick any meat off that hasn't fallen off yet. And then we'll serve it over the rice. Are you even eating red beans and rice if you don't add Tabasco? I don't think you can say you're from Louisiana if you do not always have this in your pantry. A to-go one for your purse is also acceptable. Crock pot pulled pork chili. And because I decided to double all of my recipes, I have a large family, there's 6 of us. I find that if I'm going to go to the trouble of making something, I just want to do it big. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I find it very therapeutic just to sit and chop fresh vegetables. They make me so happy. They're so beautiful. I love all the colors, the crunch. Perhaps cut the hot sauce out completely and then just go to the cayenne and crushed red pepper, how you prefer it. What I like about this recipe in particular is that you can make it very low carb keto friendly, which is the base of what I'm doing. But after it's cooked, if you want to add beans to it or serve it over rice or chips, you can do that if low carb isn't really your thing. But if it is, I think this is a great option. There's a lot of veggies in here, a lot of meat and fat. And of course, you can always serve it with sour cream, avocado, and cheese on top to bump your fat content and also kill the heat just a little bit. These smelled so good. And I will say that, so the Instant Pot didn't dissolve a lot of the liquid like a crock pot will, and that's pretty standard. I did end up freezing basically all of this. I put 1 container in a big Tupperware and the rest in 2 Ziploc bags. This recipe calls for thinly sliced zucchini as the noodles, but I will say that little slicer on the box grater works pretty well. It was a quick work of it. So you're going to sprinkle these with salt and bake them in the oven for a while, mostly to get the moisture out because there's a lot of water content in zucchini and squash, and you don't want your lasagna to be all soupy. 2 pounds of beef right here. I have 2 full onions that I'm adding and 2 cloves of garlic. And I cooked all of that together along with some taco seasoning. And then it was assembling all of the different components of the lasagna. The sauce is a combination of tomato sauce and salsa, some eggs, and the ricotta. You'll notice I have my 2 throwaway foil containers that I picked up at Sam's a little while back. I shredded some pepper jack cheese and cheddar cheese and mixed them together for my cheese blend, and then just chopped up 2 heads of fresh cilantro, also to layer into my lasagnas. Everything smelled really good, and as I was building these, I just thought it was so pretty. These lasagnas, you are going to cook all the way through in the oven, and then we'll freeze them after that. So after I cooked these, I let them cool off on the counter, covered them with saran wrap and foil. You're going to pull them out like the morning of and let them thaw on the counter all day. And remember, they're just fully cooked. So all you're going to do is just stick them in the oven to heat through, basically, is all you're doing. I did like the Mexican flavor profile of this one. So I think this one's going to suit my personal taste a little bit better. Dave was a huge fan of the way these looked and smelled, and he wanted to dig into them right away. But I was like, dude, slow down. I got to put them in the freezer. I have 2 bowls here to make my 2 loaves of bread. Over here is 3 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of yeast, and 1 teaspoon of salt. You could also use a half a teaspoon of yeast here if you just want to let it sit for about 8 hours. I'm trying to speed up the process a little bit today. We're going to go for like a 4-hour rise. That's the beginning, and all I need to do to my just plain bread is a 1.5 cups of warm water. That is all. Over here is the one I will be making, the cinnamon raisin bread. So let's add our water to this one, mix it up, and then we'll finish this one over here. Okay, now I just need to let it rise for a few hours. Easy. My cinnamon raisin bread, I have added 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Actually, they were heaping. We'll just call it 1 tablespoon of cinnamon and a 1/4 cup of not packed brown sugar. Everything else is the same, the yeast, the salt, the flour. I just added brown sugar and cinnamon. And over here in this bowl, I have 2/3 cup of raisins that I've been soaking in a cup of warm water for, I don't know, 20 minutes or something like that. I will now drain the raisins, add them in here along with 1.5 cups of warm water, and then stir. Yeah, my raisins are in. Here comes my 1.5 cups of warm water, not scalding hot, just warm. And I have a stir assistant that's gonna stir for me. Okay, this is actually the texture I'm looking for more than the other one. I think I didn't use quite enough water in the other one. I live in a very high elevation and dry climate. I did add a touch extra water. But here's my dough. I'm gonna put some saran wrap on this and let this sit for several hours. To be clear, the bread dough needs to sit on the counter. On the counter, this does not go in the fridge, until it gets very bubbly. It's going to look very, very wet. Something like this. And you can let this sit out anywhere from 8 to 24 hours, kind of depending on how warm your kitchen is. My kitchen is not that warm today, maybe 70 degrees. I live in a fairly cold climate, so mine takes longer. If you live in a warm climate, this would go a lot quicker. The next step is to get your bread pans ready. I will be using 2 mini Dutch ovens. This is a 3-quart. This is a 2-quart, and we're just gonna see which one cooks better. You can also use just a regular loaf pan, but you are gonna need to use a second one on top. It does need to have a lid for this to work correctly. They are going to go into a cold oven, and then we will preheat the oven with these inside at 450 degrees. There you go, cold and somewhat dirty oven. And we're gonna go 450 degrees. So when we pull these out to put the dough in, make sure you use hot pads for your hands, or you're gonna burn your hands. Starting with a clean counter, I will do a little sprinkly sprinkle of flour. So I have my plain dough right here, and I do have some flour on my hands so it doesn't get so it doesn't stick to me, but it probably will a little bit. And we wanna get this whole dough ball out and kind of mush some of the holes out of it and let it rest on this counter. You see how sticky this is? This is the way you want it to be. Very, very sticky. It's gonna give such a nice texture once the bread is cooked. So a little flour on top, and we're just gonna do just a quick little flip. I'm not even really kneading it, I'm just forming it in a ball, something like that. Okay, this one is a lot more wet. You can see it kind of slide out of this bowl. So I'll use a little extra flour over here for this one. And I gotta tell you, this smells amazing. Like, you would find this at a bakery. You would pay like $8 a loaf for this at a bakery, and you can make it yourself for like pennies, basically. A little flour here. And let's try our best to put, this one's super goopy, into some kind of a ball here. That's pretty close. Okay, we're gonna let these sit for 30 minutes while our pans are preheating, and then wash your hands. It has been 30 minutes, so I am going to take my loaves of bread and place them in my Dutch ovens, which I have pulled from the oven. We'll start with the 3-quart, and these are very, very hot, so no touchy. You can sprinkle the bottom with cornmeal or use parchment paper, which is what I'm going to use today. So right, there we go. We will do the plain loaf, just like that. No, there's no grease or anything in here, just the parchment paper. And if you use cornmeal, it's the same. No grease or anything like that. If you have a nicer ball of dough than I do, you could like try and make an X on the top. I'm not even gonna worry about it. My cinnamon raisin one will go into this one. Just like that. Wow, that one's super sticky. Just wash my hands all over again. These are getting covered with the lids like this and like this. I don't know why that turned orange in the oven. That's so weird. This is a much cheaper Dutch oven than this one, so I don't know if that has something to do with it. Anyway, lids are on, and they are going back into the 450 degree oven for 30 minutes. At the 30-minute mark, I will take off, oh, look how gorgeous that is. I'm gonna take these lids off and let them go another 15 minutes. I think this 2-quart one might be a little small. The 3 is about perfect. So let's put those back in. 15 more minutes on that timer. Here are my breads. This is the just plain white bread out of the 3-quart Dutch oven. I think a 4-quart would also work. As you can see, okay, it's really, really hot. As you can see, it's cooked really beautifully. The crust is really nice. My tip for you is to not cut these for at least 30 minutes. Moving over here to the cinnamon raisin one, I don't think this one had enough room to spread out. It looks a little funny over here on the side, but it could be okay. So these do need to sit for a little while before you slice them. Otherwise, number 1, you're gonna burn your hand, and number 2, your inside texture is gonna be a touch gummy, so just let it sit. But the way I like to do these is to, once it cools, to slice it this way and then this way. and store it in Ziploc bags. Mine never lasts very long. I have 6 people in my house. Now remember, if you want all of these recipes, I do have that mini cookbook down below. On your phone, I think it's the little down arrow. But thanks for hanging out with me today, checking out all of these cooking recipes. Tell me which is your favorite down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.